2 days later, we flew to Leipzig, about as far as you can get in Germany. I found out what real combat was and what flak was. Well, with the intercom, we'd communicate what we saw.
Plane's 9 o'clock, coming around. Keep your eye on the boy. Too fat is 6 o'clock.
Crawling its way out of the Great Depression, life in the United States had begun to bounce back. But despite factories booming and entertainment ever more enthralling, the effects of the Depression still impacted many families, like that of Ralph Goldsticker from St. Louis, Missouri.
My father lost his manufacturing and millinery business during the Depression. But normal growing up, I was a Boy Scout, an Eagle Scout, and I had 2 years of college, 1 year at Washington U, and my parents couldn't afford the $125 tuition for the next semester, so I knew I was going to be drafted, but I wanted to be an officer. My uncle was a West Point graduate and an officer, and I got a recruiting program from Army Air Corps. You could be a pilot, bombardier, navigator in 6 months, and then I enlisted on July 6, 1942, in the Aviation Cadet Corps. And since I was going to be a bombardier, I had 250 caliber guns in the nose. Had to go to Laredo Aerial Gunnery School for 6 weeks. And that was fun. We shot all kinds of guns, and particularly our 50 caliber. But after 6 weeks of that, we went 12 weeks of bombardier training. After I was commissioned, I was sent to MacDill Field in Tampa, Florida, where they put together B-17 crews, 10-man crews.
Ralph joined the 728th Bomb Squadron in the crew of a B-17, a bomber commonly referred to as the Flying Fortress. Each member of the crew was specifically trained for their position on the aircraft.
Joe Antle is our pilot, is 22, and Marty Atkins, 20, and Hank Ladani, the navigator, is 25, I was 22. And then the 3 gunners are all 19. And then the radio man is, I think, 23, and the engineer was 24. Well, we named ours Deuces Wild Lorry name, but the tail number was 297222. The pilots got to name the plane, but they named them after their city or their wives or their girlfriends.
At the beginning of 1944, Ralph and the Deuces Wild crew were on their way to England to await their turn in joining the fight against Adolf Hitler. By this time, the Allies had driven German forces out of northern Africa and had them on the defensive throughout Italy. But the time was soon coming to bring the fight to Hitler's forces in Western Europe. No sooner had Ralph landed in England than he found himself back in the air, on the way to his first mission.
As on May 27, 1944, we bombed a heavy gun emplacement right on the French coast. We were over the enemy territory, or France, for maybe 10, 15 minutes, so it was a milk run. 2 days later, though, we flew to Leipzig, about as far as you can get in Germany. I found out what real combat was and what flak was. Well, with the intercom, we'd communicate what we saw.
Plane's 9 o'clock, coming around. Keep your eye on the boy.
Bandit at 9, then 10, 11, they're attacking. But in the nose, I had literally 2 seconds to fire. We lost 3 out of 18 planes that day. We'd finish a mission, we'd have our debriefing, and go back to our Quonset hut. There's 4 empty cots. And friends of yours you did breakfast with in the morning and made jokes with and whatever. And you wonder what happened to them. Are they dead? Are they prisoners? What happened? That's the only thing that I think that happened too many times. You survived, but I don't know.
In June of 1944, the stage was finally set to bring the war to Hitler's doorstep, beginning with the unprecedented Allied invasion of Normandy.
We were briefed on the night of the 4th of June, and then dismissed and called in at 10 o'clock at night on the 5th of June, and told the invasion was on and what our target was. There's so many planes in the air, and our target was a heavy bomb emplacement between Caen and Sword Beach in the morning.
The gates of Europe were finally open. As Ralph and the rest of the ETO Air Corps provided support from above, troops on the ground fought vigorously on the beaches of Normandy.
We took off at 2 and got back by 9:30. When we ate and reloaded the planes, we took off at 3 o'clock. And our target that afternoon was Argentine, rural junction about 30 miles south of the beaches. We bombed that. Could see the whole extent of the harbor, about 50 miles from Utah to Sword Beach. And I read there's 7,000 vessels out there and 4,200 landing craft alone. And going back to southern England, every road, every highway was filled with tanks, jeeps, ambulances ready to go ashore. All the casualties were extremely high. I was there in 14 and a half hours, but nothing compared to what was going on in the ground. So we had a long day, but easy compared to the others. This is our 25th mission. We're 27,000 feet over Munich. Thought we were going to get shot down, and then we were attacked by Messerschmitt 109. And a squadron of P-51s came and drove them off, but a burst of flak hit us right at about 10 seconds after I dropped the bombs. Bottom of the plane to the bottom of the pilot's in an armored seats. I went through there and through Marty's upper thigh and went out the roof, knocked out 2 engines. The only thing that saved him was 40 degrees below zero, the blood froze as it came out. We tried to go into Switzerland, but it was fogged down, so we couldn't. So as we lost altitude, it started bleeding again. So the last 3.5 hours, I just held pressure on his wound to keep from bleeding to death. We threw everything overboard that we could because we were trying to get back to the England. And anything that wasn't nailed down, we threw out. And I've always wondered what the farmer in Germany thought of a bomber seat in the middle of his field, but there it was. We crossed the coast probably 1,000 feet. We'd called in Mayday that we're going to hit ditch in the channel, but we didn't have to. So fortunately, we got back to our base.
Ralph would eventually fly and survive 35 perilous missions over enemy territory, earning himself the right to go home. But for some men, returning home from war is easier said than done.
After I finished flying my 35th mission, I was afraid to come home. I'd been shot at enough, so I stayed in England until March of 45, and I came home. We celebrated, but we didn't go all out. The war's still going on. We were happy. We survived, but when the war ended, I was in Big Springs, Texas. We were happy, but the war was over.
In 2024, Ralph traveled back to France for the 80th anniversary of D-Day as one of the last living veterans who took part in the invasion of Normandy. He was met by grateful crowds, thankful for his part in liberating Europe.
The thing I came back with was the American cemetery with then 9,000 graves. That stuck to me more than anything else. I mean, the president was great, but I can't forget all the crosses and stars of David in the American cemetery. That's what stuck with me. 9,000 boys and soldiers that were killed in an invasion. But I was only one of 16 million that served, and every job was important regardless. For us to fly, you had the truck driver bring in gasoline, he's important. The armors bringing the bombs and putting them aboard. You had the parachute packers, you had the weathermen, you had the medics. So regardless what they were, every job was important. Mine might have been a little more dangerous, but it took all of us to win the war. Plus Rosie, the riveters, and the whole United States. Everything was behind the war effort.
Hey, I'm Heather from Memoirs of World War II. Each day, more and more veterans of the Second World War are passing away, and along with them, their personal experiences. But we're on a mission to capture and share these unique perspectives right here on our channel, and your support is crucial in preserving this history. You can help us out by joining us on Patreon, and you can find out more details at memoirsofworldwar2.com. Also, make sure you're subscribed and click the notification bell. Your support of our channel keeps these stories alive. Thank you for sharing these videos, and thanks for watching.